On December 7, 1988, a major earthquake struck Armenia, destroying many towns in northern Armenia. The duration of the earthquake was short, but its strength reached 10 points. As a result, the city of Spitak, about 17,000 inhabitants, was completely destroyed during that time. In Leninakan, now Gyumri, the destruction was over 80%. More than 300 settlements, hospitals, schools, kindergartens, factories, boiler houses were destroyed all at once in Armenia. The Armenian nuclear power plant was shut down. About 25,000 people died, according to some estimates up to 45,000, and more than 500,000 people became homeless in the region. Why was there such a high death toll from the earthquake? There were several factors involved. First of all, the entire region of the Caucasus was considered a 6 to 7 point zone, and it was assumed that there could not be a stronger earthquake there. It turned out that it could. Secondly, builders, for the sake of economy during construction, which later cost terrible blood to all inhabitants of that region, persuaded seismologists to record those regions as less seismodangerous, for 5 to 6 points. And finally, some sources report that construction sites in those places were stealing. State houses, workshops of factories, schools, kindergartens, all of them were made of reinforced concrete with a very large shortage of cement. Even after the earthquake, when many houses collapsed like houses of cards, crushing their inhabitants under their ruins, it was discovered that the reinforced concrete slabs of walls and ceilings simply crumbled with sand if struck with a stone or an iron bar. Too much cement had been stolen from that reinforced concrete. In Leninakan, now Gyumri, from 80% to 90% of the buildings collapsed during the seismic shocks. More than 17,000 people died. Some died instantly, others died long and painfully, being buried under the debris of buildings. Shortly before this event, many 9-story buildings were constructed on Shirakatsi Street in Leninakan, where local residents received apartments. All of these houses collapsed like houses of cards in a seismic impact, burying and killing all of their residents. Schools and kindergartens, clinics, and the city hospital also collapsed. At the same time, although Leninakan's cooperative houses went through numerous cracks, becoming uninhabitable, they remained standing. The residents of the cooperatives built with their own money. During construction, they checked who brought what and how much, and the control increased the quality of the buildings. And in the very center of the city was an ancient fortress, built during the time of the Tsars. The earthquake did not cause much damage to it, except that the glass in the windows went out. The earthquake happened about noon. Children were in schools and kindergartens, adults were at work. Those who were at work, for the most part, perished under the ruins of workshops, hospitals, and canteens. Children died right in classrooms and kindergartens. They say that the bulldozer operator, who dug up the whole class of first graders, crushed by the concrete slabs of the ceiling, went crazy right there, and he was sent to a mental hospital. Rescuers from all over Russia and Europe were amazed at the extent to which looting had taken hold in the ruined cities, amazed at how some residents brazenly robbed and stole both their dead and the foreign rescuers. The worst thing that the rescuers saw in Spitak, Leninakan, and other Armenian towns and villages hit by the disaster was the clear division of local residents into victims of the disaster and those who wanted to get their hands on the universal disaster, the looters. Cities and all surrounding infrastructure were destroyed, many thousands of people died, many tens of thousands tried to understand where their loved ones were, help arrived from all the republics and from abroad, people, equipment, special equipment, trained rescue dogs. During the first days, in addition to the corpses, some people were found alive, often maimed, but sometimes not even a scratch. It is said that on the 6th day after the disaster, a crane lifted the plates, which had been stacked in one place, and found a little boy sitting on a pot and holding a doll in his hand. The boy was in shock, covered with a thick layer of concrete dust, but he didn't have a scratch on him. He only started crying when he saw the people. The last live one was dug out from under the ruins on December 16 in Leninakan, now Gyumri. The equipment showed that there was a living person in the depths of the rubble. A desperate kid, a rescuer from Donetsk, crawled through the gap between the slabs. When he came back, he reported that there was a girl and that one of her legs was crushed and smashed by the slab. That is, the girl had a compression trauma. The crushed leg was already dead and had accumulated cadaveric poison in it. If you just take the pressure off and pull it out, the girl would die right away. To save the girl's life, her leg had to be amputated right there. The guy was given a tourniquet, a hacksaw, a syringe of strong anesthetic, and asked to do it. He once again crawled down there, into the crevice under the rubble and, after a while, pulled out a girl who was still alive, now with only one leg. How did the life of that little boy and that girl turn out? What happened to them in their new, capitalist life? There were such cases in the history of the USSR, in Ashgabat in 1948 and in Tashkent in 1966. But in the times of the USSR, the whole Soviet Union gathered together, sent rescue detachments, and people worked together to prevent looting. The ruins were dismantled, the wounded were treated, the dead were buried, and even more beautiful houses were built on the cleared ground, taking into account the possibility of strong earthquakes. An earthquake happened in Armenia at the very end of the Soviet Union. Many temporary shelters were brought to Armenia to wait it out for a few years. They began to build new earthquake-resistant houses. But when the USSR came to an end, the construction works were over. The builders left and their own came to the unfinished houses, looters, who started to tear down the unfinished buildings for the sake of iron and non-ferrous metals. No one was willing to rebuild the plants in former Leninakan, now Gyumri. One of the former industrial centers in Armenia is unlikely to be restored to its former extent. People are leaving. Of the tens of thousands of former residents of the once great city, a few thousand unhappy people remain, still living in old and rusty iron barracks donated by the USSR to earthquake-stricken Armenia. Subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends. Give it a thumbs up. Tell us interesting facts you know about the topic of this video. See you in new videos.